The Boston Marathon, 1 year later, Tuesday at 5 on ABC 6 News.
Good morning and welcome to On the Record with Buddy Cianci. A lot of events have occurred in the State House the past month or so. A new leadership has been put in place. Last week we had the Speaker of the House, Mr. Mattiello, on, and now we have his two colleagues. First of all, the Majority Leader, John DeSimone, who's been in the House for about 22 years. He represents the north end of the city of Providence and part of North Providence, I believe, also. Am I right?
Just Providence.
Just Providence. Oh, you guys changed that around a lot.
During redistricting.
Redistricting, okay, from my days. And of course, Charlene Lima, who is the Deputy Speaker of the House. She has a big office there now. Was part of the leadership before Mattiello came in, actually, and then was kind of released from leadership positions, now back again. Well, congratulations on both of your positions that you've been elected to. Tell me, let's go both. Either one of you. Let's go back to the weekend when I was on the phone with you. I think just once or twice to find out what was happening so fast. Gordon Fox, his house or whatever, raided, FBI and all that. That's in the works. That's happening. And then all of a sudden, 100 hours later, you guys find yourselves in leadership positions and Mattiello was the Speaker. But I understand it was all done in your living room. Am I correct, Charlene Lima?
Well, you know, Mayor, we started making phone
You make good
calls.
pizzas and all that. I understand.
We ended up at my house. But I understand some stories I've been hearing. You had some great meetings across the street at your house.
Because my mother's house was right across from yours.
So we
That's
decided
right.
to keep it in the
area. Keep the
area.
tradition, keep the neighborhood going. Yeah.
So we were at my house making phone calls, and reps just started coming over by the carload and helping us to make phone calls.
And so you were able to grab a number of votes. When did you really feel, John? Let me ask you this: when did you feel that your team had won the race? Because I know it was touch and go for when the raid happened and all that. You were at the
sometime Sunday.
Sometimes Sunday you had it, and the Republicans pretty much came over to your side, or most of them did. Am I correct?
Yeah, 5 out of 6 did.
5 out of 6, and what did you have to promise them to get them to come to vote for you?
Nothing. It was just a cohesive group of individuals who wanted change.
Well, I'll tell you what Trillo told me. He's one of the leadership in the Republican. He said that you guys were more pro-business than the other side was, and you were more inclined to do things that they would be interested in. That's why that they leaned, or the overwhelming majority of Republicans leaned toward your team.
That's true. That's true. They felt more comfortable with us, I believe, because, as you know, Speaker Mattiello is concerned with business and jobs and the economy, and that's something that the Republicans were interested in.
And I was at one of the meetings with Speaker Mattiello and the Republicans. I think it was on Saturday, and he said how he was going to be more inclusive. Not only said it, but he turned to Representative Chippendale and he said, "Do you not?"
He's a Republican rep.
Right.
From
Do you not come in my office and speak to me when you have problems? Yes, I always have. Representative Costa, have you always been welcome in my office? So he told them he was going to continue to do what he did as a leader, and was to be inclusive.
And then he did something that everybody was shocked at. He appointed Doreen Costa to be vice chairperson of the Judiciary Committee. You had to be part of that decision. I would imagine you were part of the decision. Why did you do that?
Well, Doreen is dedicated to those issues. She was on Judiciary. She was a big supporter of the Speaker and of our leadership team, and there was a feeling that she deserved it, and that's why he appointed her.
How times change, you know. Gordon Fox, who was the Speaker, he had like a C rating, I think, from the National Rifle Association. Now Doreen Costa is an A+ rating, and the Speaker, I think, is an A. So just without electing anybody, the public had nothing to say about it, but just those 35 or 40 reps, and no one changed. Everybody's the same people, but they just ended up electing a new Speaker, and all of a sudden, the philosophy of the whole House changes. You put an A+ person in charge of Judiciary, or a second in charge of Judiciary, and the Speaker is an A from the NRA. What do you got to say to that? Does that mean that the people really have nothing to say about all this, or are the people really being responded to now?
Well, I mean, the individual reps represent the people in their neighborhoods, and I think that the body in the House felt as though they wanted to have a change of direction. They wanted to have a more moderate approach, more business friendly, And
What do you think?
that's how we came together.
What do you think, either one of you? What do you think? Maybe both of you. What do you think that this speakership is until January? And I don't think there'll be any problem re-electing him unless something crazy happens. But he's got a solid 61 votes there, and he's not going to lose all those. And there's a honeymoon period. But tell me, what do you think you could do? I mean, talk is talk, and I love what Mattiello is saying. I think a lot of the talk show hosts do. I think a lot of the people in the press do. Maybe some of them, not all of them. But he seems to be open. He seems to be, for business. We all know the economy is the biggest thing we've got going here as far as issues concerned. What do you think that the speaker should, or the House should do to show that this talk is not just talk, but it really is meaningful in the next 50 days, 30 days, 40 days, to jumpstart this economy? I want both of you to answer, but go ahead.
Mayor, as the speaker has told you, I know before, one of the things that we're looking at is the corporate tax, the minimum corporate tax, the inheritance tax, and any kind of issue that we think can help stimulate the economy and keep people enthusiastic about coming to Rhode Island and growing their businesses in Rhode Island.
So those, there's a short fuse here. There's only another, a couple of months, and it's a big, tall order because the economy is in tough shape, and unemployment. I have to tell you that. Charlene, what do you think has to be done?
Well, at lunches I had with Speaker Mattiello prior to him becoming Speaker months before, when he was Majority Leader, he came up with a plan where he was going to reach out to financial experts and universities and have them come to do presentations, meet with us, and come up with some ideas so that we are up and running. He's getting the research now so that we're up and running to make some changes to show the state that we are a pro-business state and we do want to jumpstart the economy.
Okay, and that would be raising the threshold on the inheritance tax. Those are some of the things that they're talking about.
Exactly.
Reducing the sales tax. But how do you feel about reducing the sales taxes? How do you replace that revenue? I mean, I don't understand how you can do that.
As you know, we're part-time legislators, and we're going to rely on the experts.
But it's really a full-time operation.
It's a full-time operation,
Yeah,
is
right,
right. But
yeah.
we need to rely on experts, and we will consult with them.
And see where this revenue can come from.
See where it can come from, and what's the
Chairman
best way to
Mallett's
help the...
been doing a great job with that, and he's presented 2 bills that will now go to committee, and it has the shortfalls of if we reduce it to be competitive with Massachusetts, or if we reduce it even more, what the shortfalls will be. So we know what that will be. Now we have to look at, by reducing it, how much more income will be coming into the state because people will be buying more here.
There was a study done on the inheritance tax by Picciarelli and Goldstein. It's a CPA firm, and they said that about 2,000 people leave the state every year, and we lose about $25 million in taxes. But we also lose about $325 million that's put into the economy because they go to Florida, North Carolina, where they go. The question is, there's a lot of people who would stay here if, in fact, that estate tax threshold was raised. That's on your radar.
Absolutely.
I
Definitely,
believe.
we're looking into it.
Okay. The other thing that I want to ask you is things that maybe every year for the last 50 years there's been a bill in to get rid of the master lever. That one throwback to the machine politics, ward healers, and the days of Tony Bucci and all the legendary political figures, especially from your ward. Because as you know, I always joke and say, if I die, I want to die in the 4th ward because I want to continue my voting experience for eternity. Right? But that's not really the truth with you. But that's the reputation. However, the master lever. You talk to any politician, you talk to any person in the legislature, you talk to do-gooder groups, anybody, and they say, "Oh, yeah, we're against the master lever." And then when it comes time to have a hearing, it's referred to committee. You've been studying it for 50 years. I mean, what else do you have to know?
Wasn't the master lever, I believe it was something that was established by the Republicans many years ago.
Yeah, and they were just as wrong as the Democrats.
And it benefited the Republicans.
Of course.
And then the policy of the philosophy of
But
the
you guys
state
are reformers.
Change,
Aren't you?
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
think that, as the speaker had said, we need to focus on the jobs and the economy, but I think we also, the more important thing is to focus on legislation I've put in and other people on having transparency.
I've known Charlene Lima since she was a teacher in Providence and a good teacher and a truant officer. I've known John DeSimone for years, decades. These people don't need the master lever to win. You don't need the master lever. You win about 8 to 1 or something like that. You win about 25 to 1. You don't need the master lever. I mean, but other places where it is kind of an imbalance. You know what I'm saying? So why wouldn't you just say, get rid of the master level, be a reformer, cost you nothing, you win next time.
I think we
like
are
that.
going to look at it. I think right now the priority is
Okay,
jobs,
all
the
right, I
economy,
understand.
transparency, fixing up the state that way.
Well,
And I think it's something
okay.
that we will look at, but it's
Okay.
routine looking at it.
You know, the Speaker of the House is a very important person, and his leadership team are equally as important, because I imagine you have meetings, you advise, you consider things together as a team. At least that's the way it appears to me. And we have an election coming up for governor. There was a recent poll that was just done by Brown University that shows Clay Pell at under 10%. It shows a tight race between Raimondo in the Democratic primary, Raimondo and Tavares, the mayor of Providence. Where do you guys stand in that race? Because you'll have a lot to say about endorsements. So who gets that endorsement, so those people can go in there, you know, and if they do get the endorsement and win the primary, they can go into the election and get all that master level vote. So you have a lot to say about that. So where do you stand as far as the gubernatorial contest right now?
Well,
both of you?
we haven't had a discussion as a leadership
Right.
team yet.
Okay. All right.
I think I would be leaning toward Tavares.
Uh-huh.
And I think with Pell in the race, the way the numbers came out today, Pell being the type of person he is hurting Tavares in
yes,
the race.
that's right.
So if he drops out, I think that's going to give Pell a
Tavares, yeah.
a much greater edge.
How do you feel about that, John?
Well, as Charlene said, as a leadership, we haven't talked about the governor's race because we're more concerned about running the state of Rhode Island and
you
putting it in a
learned
great
well
direction.
over these past 22 years. You're terrific.
So that's really
Yeah,
what,
I
what our
understand.
focus has been.
Okay. The other thing I want to get into, we only got a minute to go here for this segment, but I want to get into obviously 38 studios, and I want to get into some other things that I know you'll have a lot to say about: education, budgets, shortfalls, gambling, table games at Newport. I want to talk about all those things. But are we ready to take a little break, and then we'll come back with Representative Lima and Representative DeSimone, two of the top people in your legislature. We'll be right back after this.
The Boston Marathon.
I kind of had a flashback. I heard and almost saw what happened.
John DeLuca speaks with heroes, runners, and survivors.
I think for me it'll be sort of a milestone.
Join us for a special edition of ABC 6 News, The Boston Marathon, 1 year later, Tuesday at 5.
Welcome back to On the Record with Buddy Cianci. My guest today, Charlene Lima, who is the powerful position as the Deputy Speaker of the House. And of course, the Majority Leader, which has the responsibility of controlling the majority in the House of Representatives. And they are in a team effort with Speaker Mattiello. And let me tell you something, they're arguably, especially now, the Speaker of the House and his leadership team are probably the most powerful people politically in the state of Rhode Island, arguably. We've got a governor with really without not a lot of power, not because he's not a nice man, but because the governorship in Rhode Island just doesn't have a lot of power attached to it. It's basically a legislative governing state that we have, and these are the leaders. And so we want to get to some questions that affect everybody who is watching today and beyond that. Let's talk about 38 studios, because that's been in the news. 38 studios, $80 million they want us to pay. It was a moral obligation. How do you feel? Should we pay it or should we not pay it? And there's a committee that's of oversight, which also the leadership has been changed. The person who fought your leader, Mattiello, was Marcello. It took him about 30 seconds to be relieved of that position. Now he's he's definitely in the bullpen or in the back seat, which was the way the game is played. I understand that. But then a new person comes on, Representative Macbeth, who is, bent on, she's armed for combat. I've had her on the radio show.
Yes.
Tell us what's going on. Was a hearing this week? What went on, and what's the chances of us getting...
There was a hearing tonight, Thursday night, the first meeting of the oversight.
Yeah.
And
we tape on Thursdays, by the way.
They went over the list of the people that were deposed. They're going to be requesting that the depositions be open. They came up with a list of people that
These are the court depositions, because there's also a case in court.
Depositions. They came up with a list of people that they were going to call in question. I think Karen Macbeth is going to be doing a great job. I hope we get to issue subpoenas if we have to.
Who would you issue them to? Who do you think would who would you want to hear from in this effort? I mean, the obvious, they want to see what the impact's going to be of not paying this thing, and what will it be, and they're going to have to get experts to do that. But they also want to get to the bottom of how we got into this mess, I think.
And that's exactly what
Yeah.
they said in committee. We need to figure out how we got here in the first place, because this is so insulting to the public
Oh, it's-
that this backroom deal was done. We were totally blindsided that
Well, you weren't the
75
leadership then, that's for sure.
Right,
Yeah.
and we thought 75 million was going to go to a whole bunch of small businesses, maybe
Yeah.
5 million in Cranston, 6 million
And
in
that's what
Providence.
Keith Stokes represented to people who was then with the EDC, who was the executive director. And there were a lot of Republicans, or a couple of Republicans, who on my show said they were told that it was going to go to all different kinds of companies. That's why they voted for it.
You know, the
That's
way it was
absolutely
done
true.
was so wrong,
true.
and now they want to compound it and have us pay the billionaire, out-of-state billionaires this
Exactly.
money.
Billionaire.
Absolutely not. You know, there's a lawsuit. Whatever comes up, I put an amendment in that whatever money comes in from the lawsuit, it's not going to be the total amount.
Yep.
That's all they're going to get. They're not going back to the taxpayers anymore.
And there also is insurance. But what is the majority leader's viewpoint on this about subpoenas, if necessary, and to get to the bottom of it, and whether we should pay it or not?
Well, as you know, Mayor, there's a court hearing tomorrow.
Yep.
Where
On Friday, we tape on Thursdays. Go
Right,
ahead.
and we're asking from the House, we're asking that they unseal the depositions.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that once those depositions are unsealed, there'll be a load of information and evidence for our committee to decipher and go through.
And if there isn't?
Well, if there isn't, then you know, we'll have to think of some other way to get the information. But there's at least 8 or 9 people that were deposed by experienced litigators.
Was the previous governor deposed?
I don't know if he was deposed
Yeah, I
or
would
not.
think
Don't
you'd want to
remember
hear from
seeing
him.
him
I
on
think
the
you'd want to hear
I-
from Kurt Schilling. I think you'd want to hear from Gordon Fox. I think you'd want to hear from some of those people. So,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of those people will be doing the famous 5. You know, the cinque in Italian. It means the Fifth Amendment. I guess
And
some
even
of
if
them
they're
may.
subpoenaed, they're going to come in with their attorneys and say, I advise my client not to
Yeah.
speak.
That's right. Okay, so that jury's still out, but you two of you didn't know anything about where that money was going to go. You didn't never heard of 38 Studios.
Absolutely
not.
not.
We were asking
Absolutely
on
not.
And
the
the
floor.
speaker on the show the other day said he'd never heard that 38 Studios was going to be involved
We
anyway.
didn't even know it. No, at the time we did
Yeah,
not know.
and you know, it wasn't a bad program if you could guarantee 75 million, 500,000 to this company, or 50,000 to that one, or 200,000. That would be more realistic instead of putting all your eggs in one basket and picking a winner that really turned out to be a big loser, a cartoon, for God's sake.
And I don't think it's going to hurt the bond. Nobody has come forward to say this is going to hurt the bond rating
Right.
of the state if you do this. It wasn't a general revenue bond where people
No.
voted on it.
right.
Wall Street's still going to come
Well,
on and
revenue
want
bonds they
to
don't vote on, but the general obligation bonds they do vote on. If you're going to build
yeah,
a school
the
or whatever.
moral obligation,
They don't. No,
the
that's a-
public did not get a chance to vote.
Not at all.
And I think that the bondholders are not going to give up on money. They're still going to want to do our
Okay.
bonds.
I want to get through a couple more topics before we run out of time. One is the pension, obviously, but I want to talk about Sakonnet River Bridge tolls. Are you going to be able to go to drive over the Sakonnet River Bridge without getting shot, say next summer, or how do you feel about the Sakonnet River Bridge tolls?
Well, I think at this point, the speaker and the leadership, myself and everyone in our leadership, we're trying to get a comprehensive approach to that aspect. Not only the bridge itself, but a comprehensive approach to.
Do you think it's unfair to those people use that? They go across a
Yeah.
bridge. It's you can blink and you're over it. I mean, it's just about that
and it's
big.
not really a tourism bridge like Newport.
That's right,
It's
that's
more it's more geared towards the people in that area. So with that in mind, I think it's prudent to say that we're looking to have a comprehensive approach.
Now your whip is John Edwards.
Yes.
Not the guy who ran for vice president. Our John Edwards, our guy
Right.
here, good
That's
guy.
right.
All right, now you made him the whip. I cannot imagine John Edwards, Jay was whipping up votes to put a toll on the Sakonnet River Bridge.
Good point.
So I think by that action we can see where the people of Portsmouth and Tiverton, relax, you're not going to get a toll. That's Buddy Cianci talking, not them. Let's go to, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Let's go to the pension settlement. You know, it took a lot of guts and determination to do what you did as a House back a couple of years ago, or whenever it was, when Raimondo and Chafee put together this pension package. You guys refined it and passed it. Now all of a sudden it goes to court, which we expected, and it ends up now where this supposed compromise, this mediation comes in, and now they say, okay, they didn't pass. One little group didn't vote for it, and now it's going to go back for more media. It's like having a second election. If you lose the first one, have a second one. How do you guys feel about this, Charlene?
I did not vote for the pension bill on
Reform
the floor
bill?
because I felt it went way too far, hurting working people.
Okay.
Especially in light of the fact that the same group wants to pay the millionaire bondholders
Yeah, I remember
from
that.
out of state.
Right.
But I think the election was rigged by having, if you don't send in a ballot,
Yeah.
it's an automatic yes. And
Dead
change.
people got ballots, the whole thing.
People didn't get ballots who were supposed to.
Yeah.
Changing the rules as you go. I mean, we have a pension problem. It needed to be addressed. People shouldn't be getting 3-4 pensions. They shouldn't be getting 6% compounded COLA. But I didn't like the way it was done in the beginning. And I want a final answer
Yeah.
to this. I want the judge to rule on whether or not
then it's gonna be
it's
appealed,
an
you know
implied
that.
contract.
Yeah.
It's going to be appealed. It's going to go to Supreme Court.
And there's a public policy, even if they say it's an implied contract, there is a public policy provision in the law that says if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. How do you feel about that, Mr. Majority Leader? Do you think that, do you think it should even be revisited? I mean, you passed the law. It's presumed to be constitutional. Why do you have to revisit it?
Well, you're right. I think that conceptually, there's nothing on our plate to
Yeah.
address. I mean,
And it won't be this session either, will it?
I don't believe it will. I
don't
mean,
think it can possibly
the
be
settlement is no longer viable. They're going back into mediation.
Yeah.
And since that's the case, there's really nothing for us to discuss as a legislature. We're just going to do our job, worry about jobs and the economy, and let the settlement and the lawsuits, let them take their course.
And then it doesn't have to be, and then if they don't approve what you passed, they've got to go back to you guys for
Right,
approval.
right.
And if there's one letter that changes in that law, then it's got to go back to you. I mean,
Absolutely.
So-
And there was another group that already announced that they were filing suit anyway.
That's correct.
That's not part of the settlement. So
that's correct.
I
And the
would-
other group, there was another group that was supposed to vote besides that, the non-union members, and that
Right.
never got to that.
So there's a long way before it comes to us, I think.
Okay, so that's pensions. We talked about tolls. Let's talk about let's talk about education, because you were an educator. There never seems to be enough money in education. I'll tell you this: there was a study done that Gary Sass, who's on my show every week, said that we're the 9th highest paid as teachers, but that's not out of the ordinary. I mean, because the reason why we pay big money for education here is because of administrative costs and because we have 39 different cities and towns and we have all kinds of duplications and all this kind of stuff. But our kids are not learning, to the 9th highest level. What do you got to say about that?
I think one of the things that I've heard you bring up, Mayor, all the time is we don't need 39 cities and towns
regionalization.
and so many superintendents and department heads. I mean, if you look at in Florida, they have 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
And we could even set it up to follow that with the court system and consolidate that, which would lessen the expense and do it by attrition so people don't lose their jobs. Then we'd have more money for the children's education, because I was in the classroom, they didn't even have enough books.
Yeah. How do you feel about, would you be open to doing a regionalization study? I mean, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but certainly Denny Roberts, many, many years ago, when he was governor and he was mayor of Providence, he advocated for regionalization and consolidation of services. Do we really need 39 cities? Governor Kachuri, to his credit, when he was in office, sent a bill to the legislature that said, can you at least study this and come back in a year after you study it, see if it's doable, get the experts in. Do you think you might look at something like that to reduce costs?
Absolutely. I mean, we're always eager to find any information that'll help us put the state on the right track.
So if in fact, now let's talk, okay, so that's you're open to that, not like the previous legislatures that they didn't even have a hearing on it, nothing. I think that's something that you might want to look into. The other thing I want to talk to, we've talked about pensions, I would like to talk about constitutional conventions. The speaker was sitting in this chair last week on my show, and he said he was definitely against the constitutional convention. Do you agree with that?
We haven't had a conversation about it. I'm not sure at this point.
From my perspective, I think that a constitutional convention isn't needed, but
you can pass laws in the legislature and get them
Right.
approved by the voters a lot quicker if you
Right.
want. But a lot of people say you'll never pass things like term limits for legislators. But your speaker last week said every convention he's ever been to, where they have that, they say don't do it. It's counterproductive.
Right.
And you also one of the things as far as we go with the constitutional conventions, the ethics bill. Everybody's screaming there's no supervision or ethics commission ever since that case with Irons came about. What do you think about that? Would you be willing to pass something or look at something like that would impose ethical rules on the House?
I want transparency. I want people to say who they donated to, or their business partners. A deal comes up, they start a title company, their partner gets all the money. I think we need reporting on those type of issues would give us great reform and transparency.
Well, the Ethics Commission is the big thing. That's what a lot of people are looking at. They say, if they would be against the Constitutional Convention if Alan Hassenfeld, a philanthropist who's done quite a bit for leadership around here and the Hinesborough Hospital, he says that the one thing that the House should do is show some ethical reform by passing that. Now, if not, there'll most likely be a Constitutional Convention. You never know what comes out of that body, So how do you feel? Would you support a review, at least of the subject to the Ethics Commission?
Well, I mean, certainly we're open to look at all kinds of legislation that we think is in the best interest of the people of Rhode Island. But I want to reiterate, this speaker, this leadership team, myself, we're interested in putting forth a business agenda to help businesses grow in Rhode Island. And I think that's what the people of Rhode Island are looking at. They're not looking at the master levy. They're not looking at ethics reform. They're looking at jobs, good paying jobs, good businesses.
Keeping people
that's
in
what
the
the
state.
people of our neighborhood want.
Okay. We got 30 seconds to go. Is there anything I should ask you?
I think you can see we're very happy because we got a great team working together. The speaker listens, John listens.
I got a question. If I invited you back here, you'll say the session will be over probably by July. Okay, sometime in early July, late June, whatever. I wanted to ask you more about taxes, but that'll go for another time because you'll come back. But if I had you here at the end of the year, at Christmas time, and I said, tell me what, and you're going for re-election, tell me what would you like to be able to tell me as to what your accomplishments were? You've got to make it real quick.
I would like to say that we pass legislation that most experts and economists feel as though has helped the business climate in Rhode Island.
Okay, you got to do that now.
Absolutely. We passed legislation to help bring the economy back into Rhode Island and to help relieve the taxpayers that are overburdened.
So there's nothing wrong with being pro-business, is there?
No,
Okay,
not.
all right. All right, thanks so much for being with us, Charlene Lima and John D. Simone.
Thank you.
Both in the leadership team at the House of Representatives. Everything they do affects you. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great programming on your ABC affiliate for Southeastern New England, Channel 6. We'll see you next week.
Explore the wonders of nature with the ABC6 Weather Lab. Visit abc6.com.